Pardon?
I don't really sing.
Oh, okay.
But I can chant the invocation.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great. I think we're on text 12, correct?
Yeah, I
Canto
believe so.
2, chapter 3, text 12. Is that
Let's
correct?
see. Yeah, Canto 2, chapter 3. That's the last. Yeah, that's what I remember last time. I think we were on 12 this time. Okay. So, alright, I'll just chant invocation real quick. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nastapreshu Vajreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhaktinashtiki Om Gyanat Srinam Dasha Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurumanitamina Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pustaya Bhuttale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatharine. Alright, so first of all, I hope you guys all had a happy Gauravani name. I'll just say that before I start. We had quite a big festival here, and I had to give the class last night as well. So it was a very loud kirtan as well. Nice prasadam, but like I said, I think we got back at like midnight last night. So, all right. So text 12. Jnanam yad apratiti apratinivrita gunormi chakram atma prashad utayatra guneshva asanga kaivalya samatapatasva athabhakti yoga konivito harikata shiratim nakuryat. Translation. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is satisfying due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental. It is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to Bhagavad Gita 10:9, the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. The complete functional activities of a pure devotee are always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. And thus, the pure devotees exchange feelings of ecstasy between themselves and relish transcendental bliss. This transcendental bliss is experienced even in the stage of devotional practice, sadhana ashvata, if properly undertaken under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And in the mature stage, the developed transcendental feeling accumulates in realization of the particular relationship with the Lord by which a living entity is originally constituted, up to the relationship of conjugal love with the Lord, which is estimated to be the highest transcendental bliss. Thus, Bhakti Yoga, being the only means of God realization, is called Kaivala. Sri Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayano Deva Paravaranam Paramam Asti Kaivala Samjitaha. In this connection, and establishes that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivala, and the means which enables one to approach the Lord is called Kaivala Panta, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. This Kaivala Panta begins from Shravana, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead, and the natural consequence of hearing such harikatha is attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics, for which a devotee has no taste at all. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive. And in the mature state, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body, what to speak of bodily relatives. In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. There are different modes of material nature, and all mundane functions in which a common man is very much interested or in which he takes part become unattractive for the devotee. This state of affairs is described herein as pratinivritaha gunormi. It is possible by atma prasada, or complete self-satisfaction, without any material connection. The first-class devotee of the Lord attains this stage by devotional service. But despite his loftiness, for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher of the Lord's glory, and dovetail all devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. Srila Rupa Goswami has described this action of a pure devotee as Nirbandha Krishna Sambade Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate. Even mundane activities dovetailed with the service of the Lord are also calculated to be transcendental or approved Kaivalya affairs. All right, so I'll just read the translation again since that was kind of a long purport. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools in material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental. It is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? So this purport focuses a lot on what I'm getting from it. It focuses a lot on the result of pure devotional service, which is that one basically doesn't have any more attraction to this material world. So when I was studying for my Gora printing class, I was focusing on the external reasons that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this world. And one of the things that I realized is that Lord Chaitanya, he comes once in a day of Lord Brahma. So to get an idea of how long that is, just the daytime of Lord Brahma is 12 hours, like 12 of his hours, which during these hours, 14 manus pass. So manus are like the lawgivers, and each manu rules for 72 yuga cycles. So you have Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. That's one yuga cycle. And each manu rules for 72 of those cycles. And so 14 manus pass in Lord Brahma's day. And his night is the same. So once in a day of Lord Brahma, Krishna appears. So once in a day of Lord Brahma, Lord Chaitanya appears. So it's about every 3 to 4 billion years that Krishna comes. And focusing last night on why Lord Chaitanya came, we see that he came to basically give us these rasas, which are only available in Goloka Vrindavan. This ability to love Krishna as a parent, as a friend, as a lover, etc. These more intimate rasas, to be in his inner circle. So it's basically like a special invitation. Like not everybody can be in the president's inner circle. But Lord Chaitanya, he came and he gave us this process of chanting the holy name as our form of devotional service to give us this invitation to come back, to be in this sweet relationship with the Lord and Goloka Vrindavan. And only Krishna himself can actually come and give this. No partial incarnation can come and give this. So the reason why I'm mentioning all this is because this verse here mentions that by devotional service, one gets, one loses attraction for all of their material things and things under the modes of material nature. So what we're really looking for is rasa. And everything in this world, there's a certain type of rasa or taste. People watch horror movies because they want to experience the rasa of fear. People have romantic relationships because they want to experience some sort of conjugal rasa. You have children to experience the parental rasa. So everything in this material world gives us some type of rasa or some type of taste from it. And that's why we do it, because we enjoy that taste. However, the taste is not totally satisfying to us in the end, because it comes to an end eventually, and we want something that's eternal. So Lord Chaitanya.
Frozen. You
Yeah,
frozen?
I think she must
Okay,
have.
we're unfrozen now. Okay, no, we're frozen.
No, I think maybe her internet disconnected or
Yeah,
something.
there's a bad weather here. It's raining a lot. I don't know about Santo Domingo, but
Okay.
yeah, she will
Well,
probably have to sign out and sign back in.
yeah.
Do you have any comments?
Yes. Okay. I thought that, yeah, that Luanga Peru was making very nice points about rasa and how we're all seeking a certain taste. I really wish we could have heard the conclusion of where it was going. Um, I guess my understanding is that with rasa and how we have tastes for different things and how we're looking for these tastes in the translation, the very last sentence is saying, "Who could fail to be attracted?" So such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental. It is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? So, I guess I guess in my own mind, I would connect the rasa with how within this material world we experience that taste, that we have taste for different things. She was mentioning how we have taste for horror movies, how we can have taste for romance and all these different aspects. But ultimately, since they're material, these tastes they're not going to bring about a deep satisfaction in us. But once we come into contact with transcendental knowledge, and once we come into contact with pure devotees, as stated in the text, was it text 11? Yeah, where text 11 is telling us, just the previous verse is telling us that only by the association of the pure devotee can we really get that strong attraction, unflinching, spontaneous attraction, and be unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So prior to coming into contact with transcendental knowledge or Krishna's pure devotees, we can have taste for so many material things, but that ultimately they're not going to they're not going to help us in the long run. And so once we develop that attraction for something transcendental, then this is gradually pulling us out of our material attachments and our material consciousness and bringing us gradually into a spiritual consciousness where we're thinking about Krishna more, or we're thinking about his devotees more and more until we reach a point where that's all we're thinking about is just Krishna and how to please Krishna, how to please his devotees. That this is actually a it's actually a place that we can be situated in. It just takes time and continued practice. So as far as taste goes, that's where I guess that's my understanding of where we could end up with when we're talking about rasa. Um, Additionally, for this verse, there was one point here that really stood out to me where it talks about yeah, it says for Srila Prabhupada, he says that for a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive. And in the mature state, such a devotee becomes uninterested, even in his own body. And what to speak of bodily relatives? So this being the difference for a devotee, uh, a bhakta, and say an impersonalist, where as a bhakta we actually have real the as a bhakta the cause of our detachment is out of love, that we love Krishna so much and that we're no longer interested in these things of like social and political mundane relationships. Like we're not so attached to our family because they're our family. If there's an attachment, it's out of something spiritual. It's not because this is my mother or this is my father, but it becomes something spiritual once we're in that place. So, um, so for a bhakta, our detachment comes out of love. We're no longer interested because we love Krishna and this is where we want to be. We want to be with Krishna. We want to be with his devotees. We want to see life in that way. But for someone who doesn't have that love, for someone who's practicing a spiritual path, say an impersonalist, that love is absent. So when that love isn't there, the force that can really detach us from the material is not there. There's nothing there. Really, the only thing that can pull you away from the material, if you don't have love, is what's the word? Not I guess you could say distress. Like, yeah, it's like a distress where I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel these things. So you're detaching yourself because it doesn't feel good anymore. But if that's the only reason why we're not connected to social or political things, is just because there's a distress there or there's just this unattractive feeling there, that only lasts so long. And Srila Prabhupada explains this, that there's, yogis or sannyasis that because they're not bhaktas, they eventually come back down into the material sphere, that they could be in like in spiritual, they could be practicing so many austerities and focusing on Brahman. Um, but eventually, because there's that love is absent, they fall back into wanting to serve um, wanting to serve the world in a social way or in a political way. Yeah, which is I mean ultimately which is serving their senses, but Srila Prabhupada, I'm just trying to highlight this point here because this is what's bringing us out of the material world is love. That as we're developing love for Krishna, this is actually going to bring us out of the material world and keep us out of the material world. But without that love, we may be able to come to the stage of the Brahma Jyoti and merging with the Brahma Jyoti, but because there's no love for Krishna, that we can't sustain it. We're not going to be happy there eternally. We're going to hanker after something, some kind of activity or something. And if we don't want Krishna, then we're going to want the material. We're going to want Maya. And so it's going to bring us back down to like wanting to be in the political sphere or the social sphere. So those were just 2 points that I wanted to bring up. I don't know, even if you had anything additional you wanted to add.
Well, Govinda, I think the two of you have pretty much covered it. I mean, basically we will choose, the way that we relate to Krishna, it's like we're doing certain activities in our daily life and we want to transform that somehow into a spiritual activity. So we would stop doing that in the material realm and just start doing it as devotional service, as a service to Krishna. And and there are so many different ways that we can relate to Krishna in that environment. Um, so I don't know if there's anything else I could add to that. And I know that you are needing to leave in a few minutes. Is that true? And I'm wondering if Mother Lavanga will find her way back because I could read the next verse, but if I'm just going to be here by myself, I would prefer to postpone that until until you are still here or she arrives again.
Yeah, I have to go right now, and maybe I mean, um, maybe you could read the verse and purport, and maybe in that time she would come back. I don't know. Guess that yeah, that'd be up to you if that's something you'd want to do, and then we would just and then you could just say it. You could say something about text 13, if you like. If not, yeah, then there's no problem with just ending the class here if she's not able to come within the next couple minutes.
Yeah.
I still have like 3 minutes. There's one last thing, where it was, where Srila Prabhupada, where Srila Prabhupada also said that in such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. So that, well, yeah, I think that's that in itself. In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. That can sound attractive, where you're not bothered by life anymore, where the pains of life or the suffering, where it just doesn't bother you. You're not fazed by it. That's actually a very attractive, and that you can actually be in that platform. Um, but I guess for me, it was making the connection uh, that sometimes that I guess giving an understanding of like impersonalism, where where we can desire these things, where I can desire not wanting to suffer anymore, uh, but how do I? But it just staying there, like that's the end of it. That basically my whole goal, my whole purpose of life is just not wanting to suffer anymore. I want to be rid of suffering. So that being one aspect of transcendental life, that you just don't want to suffer, so you're ready to do whatever kind of austerities and practice whatever so that you don't have to suffer, so that you can completely detach yourself from the body. uh and that's and I mean that's reasonable. That makes sense.
Right, right. I imagine Govinda, if we transform our desires and our activities into spiritual activities, then that implies that we're no longer being affected by the modes of material nature. Because if we give in to those modes of material nature, then we're still doing it in the material way. Right. So yeah. It sounds easy, but like everything else, it's very easy conceptually, but very hard in actual practice. Because yes, we are constantly being pulled in both directions, and we're constantly choosing which direction to go. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes, yes. And also adding to that too, it just makes me think that from an impersonal point of view, that can be attractive, that you don't want to suffer, you want to be above the modes, like you're saying. And but but it's it's still about yourself. It's like I don't want to suffer anymore. It's still kind of you're still kind of or we, if that's how we're looking at it, we're still
Okay.
focused on ourselves.
Maybe we don't want to suffer, but then we say, yeah, but why not a little bit more of that happiness and joy? You know,
Yeah,
the other side of the same coin.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, why not some more happiness? And then it can also that can also lead to where it, you want to end the suffering, but we want to end the suffering, but we don't want to serve. We don't want to be beneath someone. We want to just not suffer anymore, but I don't want to be serving anyone. I don't want to think that Brahman is a person and that I have to serve Brahman. I can be Brahman. You know, that's kind of like the impersonal attitude that based on that notion of not wanting to suffer can balloon into this whole conception that if I just practice enough, I can become God. I can merge with the Brahman and be God. And so, if we don't have that understanding that Brahman, that ultimate that the origin of everything is a person, then we or even if we do have that, even if we hear that actually, God is a person. Oh, no, he's not. God is a light, and you can become God. Everyone can become God. You just have to practice these certain things, and then you can end your suffering. If there's not some kind of tinge of of service, of wanting to serve, um, then we'll get stuck there, and then we can end up in the Brahma Jyoti. But like we were talking about, then we'll come back down, and it all stems from just wanting from not to end suffering. So basically, the point being that is, if our whole purpose is that we just want to end our suffering, that's not enough to sustain us. Like if we're eternal, if we're gonna live forever, then we should seek out like a solution that's forever. And so if our only motivation is so that we don't suffer, Srila Prabhupada has very nicely explained to us that we're gonna come back down and then suffer some more. So our motivation has to be something above just ending our suffering. It has to be something out of and this is where we learn. We hear that word kaivalya, which in the verse it's kaivalya samatha patas, transcendental approved path. But the only transcendental approved path is bhakti, and bhakti is love. It's not a religion. It's not this secular thing that if you're not practicing Krishna consciousness, then that means like everything else is rejected. Bhakti is love, and so if we're not practicing our transcendental path in a mood of love, we're gonna come back down into the material sphere because there's nothing else that can sustain us eternally.
Yes, very, very well said. And I must say, I agree with all of your sentiments there. And at this moment, I guess we'll close the class because the Mother Lavangala, who has been leading the class, has not returned, and Govinda is about to leave to go to an important appointment, a medical appointment. So I just like to say, wait, Srila Prabhupada, ki jai, Manunatha Maharaj, ki jai.
Hi.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank
Haribol.
you. Hare Krishna.